After the Ottoman triumph at Kosovo, Hungary stood as Christendom's last major bulwark in the Balkans. Once Bulgaria fell and Serbia became an Ottoman vassal, the Turkish frontier reached Hungarian lands directly. The Ottomans' rapid rise, fueled by absorbing the Anatolian beyliks, unsettled the Hungarians deeply. King Sigismund knew that an empire expanding so relentlessly, seizing fresh Rumelian territory almost daily, would eventually turn on his kingdom. Unless Europe mobilized on a grand scale and Christian zeal became action, Hungary risked the fate already suffered by Bulgaria and Serbia. The goal could not simply be to halt the Ottomans. They had to be driven from Europe entirely, a task only a unified crusading force could achieve. Sigismund sent envoys across the continent, requesting troops for a great crusading army. The Pope backed the cause, preaching it widely. The Byzantine emperors had long pleaded for Western help, and when Constantinople came under siege, Emperor Manuel's appeals, and his pledge to join the crusade himself, gave Sigismund's effort fresh momentum. France's enthusiastic backing proved especially decisive in assembling the army quickly. Nearly every court Sigismund approached answered favorably: the Holy Roman Empire, France, England, Hungary, Poland, Venice, Genoa, Castile, Aragon, Bohemia, Savoy, Burgundy, Croatia, Wallachia, the Knights Hospitaller, Navarre, the Teutonic Order, the Bulgarians, and other Christian powers all pledged men or support. The old crusading spirit flared back to life. Warriors from across Europe converged on Hungary under Sigismund's command. Western chroniclers put the host at Buda at roughly 120,000 men, and when Mircea, the Wallachian voivode, eager to shake off Ottoman rule, promised 10,000 more, the army swelled further still. Confident and dreaming of expelling the Turks altogether, the Crusaders advanced in two columns. The main body, led by Sigismund, marched through Serbia and down the Danube toward Nicopolis, leaving a trail of slaughtered civilians and captives behind, a brutal habit the Crusaders saw no reason to break. A separate French contingent, under John the Fearless, Count of Nevers, crossed Transylvania into Wallachia and joined Mircea's forces. By early September 1396, the combined army reached Nicopolis and besieged the city. Addressing his assembled knights, princes and elite fighters from royal houses across Europe, Sigismund promised them glory beyond measure. That by next summer they would march through Armenia into Syria, seize Beirut, and liberate Jerusalem. Should Bayezid dare face them, they would crush him, and any who fell would earn divine grace. Confident in such visions, Sigismund assumed Bayezid was still in Anatolia, gathering levies for some distant campaign. News of the Christian advance reached Bayezid and forced an abrupt change of plans. He lifted the siege of Constantinople and ordered every available unit, from Anatolia and Rumelia alike, to converge on Edirne while he rode ahead with 10,000 men. Karatamurtas Pasha's Anatolian troops and allied princely contingents crossed swiftly into Rumelia, and the Rumelian forces rushed to the muster. Traveling with the Sultan was the scholar Shams al-Din Muhammad al-Jazari, whom Bayezid held in high esteem. His account offers some of the most valuable surviving details of the battle, noting how thin the hastily gathered Ottoman force looked beside the enormous Crusader host. Once the army had assembled at Edirne, Bayezid ordered it to march without delay. Inside besieged Nicopolis, command rested with Dogan Bey, a seasoned frontier commander whom Bayezid trusted completely, though he worried that facing such overwhelming numbers, with no word getting through, might force Dogan Bey to abandon the defense. The disparity in strength was so extreme that without reinforcement, the garrison's survival seemed unlikely. Evernus Bey rode out with a scouting party and returned with grim news. The castle was ringed by a vast army, and slipping past the besiegers looked nearly impossible. By then, the Ottoman force had camped barely 10 kilometers away. Bayezid weighed every officer who might carry word through, but his patience ran out before any plan satisfied him, so he decided to go himself. Cloaked in darkness, he rode alone along paths he knew well, slipping past the besiegers undetected until he reached the castle walls. "Dogan! Dogan!" he called softly. Inside, the watchful Dogan Bey caught the voice and froze. Surely his ears deceived him. What business would the Sultan have here, alone, at night? The call came again, and disbelief gave way to relief. He leaned over the battlements and, through the gloom, made out Bayezid sitting motionless on his horse, like a figure carved from victory itself. "Here I am, my lord," he answered, voice trembling with joy after days of silence. Bayezid asked after the garrison's condition. Dogan Bey reported that the enemy had battered the walls for a week, but his veterans, trusting their sultan would come, had held firm, with supplies still ample. Bayezid told him to hold on, since help had arrived, then vanished back into the night. The Crusaders, alerted by the voices, sent horsemen in pursuit, but Bayezid had already slipped away. At dawn, the two armies stood face to face, and Sigismund was startled to find Bayezid already drawn up for battle rather than still in Anatolia. Knowing the Turks would not break from a single charge, he proposed sending infantry ahead to wear down the first Ottoman assault before the knights followed. The Western Knights, led by young John the Fearless and Marshal Busekam, rejected this outright.